Frankly, I don't think there's anybody better that's helped dealers sell more cars online than AutoTrader and Mr. Perry. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you very
Tony.
much. I appreciate the chance to be here very much. And with that little intro, I will do my best not to screw it up, particularly since I'm the opening guy. And I'll try to set a positive tone for this event. These events are great because you get a chance to hear a lot of ideas from a lot of different vendors and providers. And I always suggest that you try to cherry pick the best ones and figure out which ones work for you. I will try my best today to share some useful nuggets, as well as look over the horizon a little bit around on where the industry is going in the future. Our local team is here. Corey Hall is in the back somewhere. Corey's here. He's one of our local managers. David is here. I'm sorry. Randy, and then Bruce Jackson, who's the vice president for AutoTrader responsible for this part of the country. Bruce is in the back too. So we're here in force, and we're delighted to serve the Chicago market. We know we've got a very able competitor here in your hometown, and we just try to keep up with them. So without further ado, I'd like to jump in. And feel free to stop me at any point and ask questions if anything hits you wrong, or you have a thought or you'd like to share with the group. So what I'd like to talk today about is the topic I'm calling transparency and integration. We live in this world of growing amounts of information available to consumers in all parts of the economy, including the car business, and the need for bringing these different pieces of data together, both from the consumer perspective and from the dealer perspective. So integrating these things to make them work in a transparent world is what my topic is. And I'm going to make some fearless prognostications. And by definition, I will be wrong. Anytime a pundit or an analyst or an industry player stands up and says where they think the industry is going, by definition, they're wrong. So feel free to disagree. And what I'm going to share with you is an idea of where the industry could evolve to. It's not necessarily no one can know exactly whether that's the exact path it'll follow or how fast it'll go. But you can judge for yourself whether you think these ideas resonate in your store and in your mind. So this notion of transparency in our industry has been around for quite a while. It started in the mid to the late 90s when sites like NADA Guides and Edmunds and Kelley Blue Book started to publish dealer invoice pricing on new cars for the first time. And a lot of dealers felt a little bit uneasy with that because what other product categories do people know what the retailer actually paid? And I know there's a lot of concern about that. But it's now out there. It's been out there for now 15 years. And over that period of time, other players have come in, like Cars.com and AutoTrader.com, to provide consumers a view of cars for sale at your locations. And I should say right at the beginning, your locations are very important to us. We thank you for your business. We appreciate having a chance to work with each and every one of you. AutoTrader.com's role and kind of mission over the years was to replace the old-fashioned newspaper classifieds. When I had the chance to be our first employee back in August of 1997, I moved from Southern California to Atlanta to start it for Cox Enterprises in Manheim. At that point in time, about 3 or 4 or 5% of used cars for sale in America were published in local newspapers. The other 95% could only be found by people chewing up shoe leather on weekends. And people shopped dealer by dealer rather than car by car because that was the only way they could do it. Our idea was to build something like the MLS of the car business. You can shop for homes in a very comprehensive way, but you couldn't for cars in the late 90s. So that was our idea. And we tried to create a marketplace that brought together a lot of buyers and sellers. And hopefully in most major markets, we tried to do it in a way that we provided consumers the best view of what was for sale by having the most number of dealers and the most number of vehicle listings, and that huge database of cars properly marketed, properly serviced and supported would generate a huge and a large interest by auto dealers in participating in it. That's what happened. And over the years, this amount of information being available to consumers produced a significant growth in the number of people visiting sites like AutoTrader and Cars.com. If you had Mitch Golub standing in front of you today, a great guy, you would see a chart that looks like this one. It just wouldn't be quite as tall. But it would definitely be up and to the right like this. Like all the third parties, Kelley Blue Book, Edmunds, all of them. We've all participated as third parties helping people get the information they need in the car buying process. And our responsibility as a third party is to help you in a responsible way achieve your business goals. So all this transparency, though, has kind of created a lot of concern and in many ways a big elephant in the dealership showroom, because this trend isn't going away. The trend is actually growing, and in many ways we can consider it to be fairly inexorable, meaning not easily reversible. Once the genie is out of the bottle, it's out. And as a third-party site, our mission and our role is to try to do this in a way that's useful for you and beneficial, while also serving our consumer audience. So talk a bit more about this transparency movement. Today, it's gone a little bit farther than just invoice pricing. You all every day have consumers walk in to your stores with a lot of information about the car they're interested in buying. In some cases, they've researched the vehicle more deeply than your salespeople have, and they understand the ins and outs of it and all the different different aspects of the car, including prices from different perspectives. So this is what Kelley does today. This is what they call fair market price, fair purchase price, which is the average of the transactions they've been able to scan and absorb across the country in that local market. Other sites are doing the same thing. NADA still has invoice, and this is all for the same car, by the way. You'll see the Audi S5 53854. This is the NADA view of it, NADA guides. Here's the Edmunds view of the same car, slightly different number, but in concept the same kind of information. And then the folks at TrueCar produce the same information as well. So market average pricing is out there now. It's not exactly clean, as you can see. None of these providers are going to have the exact same data sources. So there will always be a little bit of a disconnect when people walk in your stores. But it's good to know what the consumer view of this information is. And considering many cars are purchased well under MSRP, it raises the question, important question around how you want to market yourself, what kind of best foot forward you want to put forward in your dealership website marketing, as well as what you do on sites like cars.com and AutoTrader.com. Asking prices is a signal to the consumer. So one of the things we picked up over the years is that many industry players believe this transparency thing is bad, and it's all to the benefit of the consumer. Our view is that it actually can be beneficial to you. I'm going to share with you some ways it is today and will be further in the future. And at the same time, it's likely, if this trend does continue, will cause some changes in how, as a dealership, you go to market, and what a little bit of aspects of your own business models. Because nothing ever stays the same in this world. As we observe around us, this week there's a lot of hoopla on Wall Street about a young company going public that's going to make a lot of noise, has made a lot of noise. Is it going to be a big source of information for people in the car buying process? Nobody knows yet. They're probably going to try. Many of you are trying to figure out how to influence your customers and your prospects by working with the social media sites, which is a good thing to do. But all this information is changing around us, and that means that if it changes, we have to change. So before I jump into my fearless prognostication, I'd like to create a little foundation of kind of key facts on which this future view is based. So I'd like to start with some key things that we've observed and have learned and just distilled over 14 years of working in this industry. First is that when we study consumers, we try to look at them holistically and share with you information based on fairly broadly framed questions across large populations of people, so you can have a good perspective outside your own ecosystem of what's happening in our industry. So this is a study that we did with Polk recently, R.L. Polk. They happen to be in the room. So if there's any problems with the study, the Polk guys can answer it. But no, seriously, it was a collaborative effort, and it was a big, huge sample, and I'm going to share with you some top-line results. There's more like this available if you're interested. We could share it with you. What we do is we ask people, how much time do you spend in the car shopping process? Really big, broad question. Turns out it's a lot of time. How much time do any of us spend in any other product category before we pull the trigger on a decision? Probably buying a house, taking a job, choosing a spouse. I hope we spend more time than this when we choose a spouse or a significant other. But other than those three things, this is probably one of the most researched and considered purchases. But the fact that so much of this time is spent online now is quite interesting and means there's a lot of opportunity for marketers to find their place in the consumer mind share while they're out there shopping and researching and trying to figure out what to do. So another question we asked in this Polk study was, what were the most important source of information to you, the most impactful sources of information? By the way, there'll be a copy of this available. I'm going to give a thumb drive to Corey back here, so he'll be able to make copies for anybody who wants this information. You don't have to take notes. It's all available. We asked people, what media forms, what source of information are the most impactful in the car buying process. As you can see, the internet today is the most impactful, for good reasons, obviously. But it's also interesting to observe that how little influence the traditional media are having today on actual purchase decisions. But according to NADA, and when you pulse most dealers, if we did a little straw poll in this room, I think we'd find that the vast majority of auto dealer marketing energy and ad dollars are still spent in traditional media. So this raises the question around, are we properly connecting to our audience? Does our marketing energy allocation match, consumer perception of benefit of various information sources? So I'll come back to that later. But the third-party sites play a pretty strong role in this process. Kelly, Edmunds, Cars, AutoTrader are the four biggest ones. Obviously, there's eBay out there. There's Craigslist. There's a host of others. Heard about Web to Cars this morning from Alex. So there's a lot. This is a wide open space, and anybody can join it. When you look at how people spend their time online, though, you wonder where those 11, 12 online hours go. It turns out that you can see that third-party sites garner most of the time spent online, which is kind of to be expected because folks like to get objective, impartial, independent, unbiased information as part of this very important purchase. They spend a lot of time on your sites. Maybe there's a little thing I can do. I'll try to pointer here. Maybe not. Anyway. A lot of time spent on dealer sites, manufacturer sites, and search as well. But third parties, particularly for used cars, is really where most of the time is spent. And this sends up signal flares, obviously, as dealers on where we need to have a strong presence. We need to have a strong presence with our own site, most importantly, clearly. OEMs, they're going to do what they're going to do. Search is going to do what it's going to do. You can have your presence on Google if you want. Many of you do. And third parties is where the real action is, I'll show you. So, and also importantly, we need to understand how people kind of approach this car shopping process. I showed you earlier there's 16, 17, 18 million people a month on sites like AutoTrader, 12, 13 million a month on Kelley Blue Book. There are only 3.5 million, 4 million cars transacted a month in America. So these sites have a large audience. Not everybody's going to buy a car right now. But over the next 3 or 4 months, they are. And you see here that most people who come to AutoTrader, when they first start the car buying process, they weren't really sure what they wanted. So you have a chance every time you touch them on your website and on AutoTrader or Cars.com to influence them to want to work with you. And that means helping them understand why the car is a good one for them and why your dealership is a good place to do business. And many dealers actually, don't do as much with the opportunities that they have available through the third-party sites to get those messages out there. It's also interesting that when you approach any kind of approach the car shopping process, there's a lot of choices and a lot of complexity. I'm showing you right now all of the live new vehicles in the midsize SUV segment that are available to consumers in America today. It's hard to know all these cars. So this is part of the reason why this process consumes so much time. People aren't sure what these new cars are. In the old days, when I was a kid, you could almost see just the shadow of a car going by and know what it was by the shape of it. They had unusual shapes then. They had things like tail fins and stuff when I was a kid. Now they're kind of boxy and kind of similar, and some of the names are a little bit unusual, a lot of letters being thrown around, as opposed to memorable names like Impala, that kind of thing. So in any event, it's a complex car buying process. And on AutoTrader.com, the average number of vehicles people look at, down at the vehicle detail page level, is 8 cars. That's significant because it says that when somebody's on your car, they're also considering others. So the way you present yourself is important to have a chance to attract them. And 53% of the AutoTrader audience is considering new and used cars. The other 47% is likely going to buy a used car. There's a perception, I think, that a lot of dealers have that AutoTrader.com is a used car place. It was historically, isn't anymore, because we have as many new cars on AutoTrader as used cars, and there are as many interested new car buyers as there are used car buyers. And we have a shopping path, as you know, which is all cars, kind of like when people come onto your lot, they like to comparison shop. We wanted to emulate the real-world shopping experience on AutoTrader.com. That's why we did it that way. So I want to make this assertion while I'm pausing on new car for a second, that a similar marketing approach can be used for new and used cars. There's a little different dynamic around the fact that a consumer can order the car, or you can do a dealer trade. But after consumers have researched a vehicle on a manufacturer's website, studied the MSRP and the dealer invoice and all the spins, many of them, their next urge is to know, where is the car I want to buy? They also want to know what the deals are. So there's a lot of information and some transparency out there about deals. But there's also a lot of now information about inventory. Many of you are placing new car inventory on both Cars.com and AutoTrader.com. We have this tool called Frontline Listings, which enables a consumer to actually walk your lot on the specific car they're interested in without even leaving the page. They can see every vehicle. And the dealers that are doing this well are often posting a price under MSRP. I want to share with you a statistic that isn't known. There are about 1.5 million new cars on AutoTrader.com, and about 20%, or roughly 380,000 of them on any given day, have a price under MSRP. So an asking price is nothing but a signal. It's a starting point in a conversation. And so for 80% of the new cars on AutoTrader.com to sit there with MSRP says that many dealers still quite haven't figured out that sending signals to new car buyers through third-party sites makes sense. When we look at how new cars are merchandised today on our site and on Cars.com, the dealers that are putting actual photos of new cars are doing well. And you can see we help support your local marketing with the national OEM marketing. In this case, the folks at Jeep are marketing a lease program into this market. I want to share with you a couple different examples here quickly. This is a dealer who's near the Atlanta area who's doing a nice job with pictures of the vehicles, which is great. We suggest 3 or 4 or 5. You don't need to do 30 or 40 pictures of new cars. The consumer needs to know it's a real car. And then this is an example of a comments, new car comment that really doesn't do much. Many dealers just kind of put up a generic message or a generic VIN explosion. They do, in this case, put a little bit of a why buy for me message, try to position the dealer positively in the customer's mind. Here's another example of a dealership. This happens to be a used car. This is an example of effective used car marketing on AutoTrader, where the certified car is being well photographed, well displayed, and well described. One of the things that we see in AutoTrader, and we give you reports on, is the number of times each car is viewed in AutoTrader. I hope you're studying that data, also looking at what's happening on Cars.com, also looking at your own website and understanding the vehicle views down at a very granular level. Because these days, people are going to need to see your car someplace before they're going to come to your store largely. So the amount of action your individual vehicles are receiving online is an early indicator of potential showroom traffic. The numbers correlate with each other. So this kind of presentation tends to draw like a magnet more eyeballs than the more generic presentation does. Another nice why buy from me message. And then lastly, here's a new car where you can see that the price is displayed, $6,000 roughly, $5,800 under MSRP, and the comments field of the car. Here's the nice photos. Here's an example of a new car listing that kind of is engaging to the customer. If you're actually in the market for a car like this, this draws you in. If you do a scan in this market of most of the new car listings on most dealer websites and on cars.com and AutoTrader.com, they're not going to have this level of richness. And so our team is happy to share with you the results you can get when you do put the elbow grease needed to effectively present your new cars to the car buying public. And here's a case of where they're also doing a nice job of explaining their dealership and what they have to offer. So real quickly before I make my prognostications, I want to share with you, distill over a 14-year period of being in 500 stores and observing and working with, having the privilege and the opportunity to work with many dealerships, the things that we've discovered and have observed the top performers across the country. These are the kind of ideas and concepts that drive their business. First is they really try to understand how consumers make decisions. What are the main decisions they're trying to make? Then they try to understand consumer shopping behavior, some of the data I just shared with you, and competitive best practices. What's happening around them. And then figure out how we're going to differentiate ourselves from the other local dealers that we compete with. What are our points of differentiation? Many dealers have wonderful statements on their wall about the Aikens difference or the Sunnyvale Toyota promise. But when you get to their website, it's stuck under the About button. Or it's not really explained very effectively when people are discovering your cars through a classified third-party site. So defining your points of differentiation, and then being what we call excellent in the basics. There's so many fine points, and our team is here to help support you in knowing what these fine points are, and you can turn the dials on the quality of your photos, the quality of your merchandising, the placement of your listings, and you can watch your number of VDPs rise or fall, depending on how you do it. It goes both ways. So even though there's so much information out there today, and so many dealers are doing a good job, there still does remain a fairly significant disconnect between what people do online and what they end up having to do in your store when they walk in. And that's a pretty interesting graphical representation of it. And the main manifestation is something that you do every day. The disconnect is manifested right here. You all have done a gajillion of these things. Every car deal is different. And every consumer is different. You've all seen them change their minds mid-deal. From one car to another, wife and husband are debating. The program changes when they flip from one car to another. But people, when they're at home, they're trying to figure this out in advance. And they get into the store and they start all over again. So this is one of the main stumbling blocks that's impeded true e-commerce to happen in this industry, as we all know. So, and when we ask consumers how satisfied they are with different aspects of the car buying process, again, we try to ask big, broad questions of large populations of consumers. And we try to ask the question that maybe you would want to ask. Like when you listen to the news commentators, when they do interviews on TV, the good ones ask the question you would like to have asked. We're trying to do that for you with our research resources. So here we ask consumers, what aspects are you more satisfied with versus less satisfied with? And you can see the ones that are more satisfied with have to do more with finding a car, researching the car, learning about incentives and information, locating dealerships, and the aspects they're less satisfied with relate to the in-dealership experience. The negotiation of the price, paperwork, financing, and trade-ins. So in this world where we all are striving to serve our audience, our customers better than somebody else, we all try to figure out what the unmet needs or the pain points are and innovate around those so that we can gain market share in our local market, whatever it happens to be. That's the nature of capitalism. We've got to beat the other guy by providing the customer more of what he wants compared to the other person. So clearly when there's this kind of dissatisfaction, and there has been for many years, there will be innovation around this. It's going to happen. Now let's talk a little bit more about the buyer-seller interaction, though, that leads up to this process. So another survey that we've done is actually one that you all have participated in. About 1,300 stores in the last year have allowed us to talk to 150,000 car buyers through a third party where we get access to your customer list, recent customer list, and ask them a few questions. You get a chance to listen in. The studies are free. It's called a sourcing study. We do it on a nickel. Happy to do one for you. Guys in the back of the room can sign you up. And the way it works is that third party asks questions like, what information sources did you use in the car buying process? Which ones are most important? And this question here, how did you initially contact the dealer? As well as any comments about the car buying process. All the interviews are taped. They're put on a server. You get a chance to hear them. It's completely transparent. But here's the answer to one question. How did you initially contact the dealership? How did you initially contact the dealership you bought a car from? Now, this surprises a lot of dealers. Most dealers think that they've had prior contact with most of their current customers. It turns out that in the customer's mind, they haven't. And so there's not much, there's a little bit of email happening here from the consumer side, a little bit of phone, but most of the time they just walk in. And what this means is that this fundamentally is not really an e-commerce medium or direct response medium today. It's an influencing medium. And our dealership's challenge is to get people to walk in based upon what they find on the internet. Now, you may get an email, you may get a phone call, you may get a visit to your website. Chances are you will get a visit to your website. In fact, your website is the single most visited site by these car buyers. That's the other thing we tell you, is the usage of all sites used by your car buyers. Your sites are almost always number one. I'm not going to say who's number two, because this is not meant to be a promotional message. So, so the other thing that, yes, sir? It's independent of. People have to choose one of three things. They can only choose one. Either the initial contact was by email, it was by phone, or they just walked in. And 66% of the time, this is over 130,000 people and 1,300 dealerships scattered all across the country. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm trying to say two things at the same time. I'm saying they are doing research. They are doing research, and they're finding you. They're finding other dealerships. They're finding a lot of information. Most of the time, they're choosing not to contact you, though. They are walking in based upon the information they found from all this research. Now, so does that make sense? Does that click? So, you would expect after all this research, they would do something electronically, right? I guess that's the expectation. But human behavior being what it is, they don't. So we've been tracking this for a long time. I want to come at it from a couple different angles for you. So the folks from J.D. Power do a new car shopper study every year. And they ask car buyers, like 50,000 of them, how did you make, did you contact the dealer at any time was the question. Did you contact the dealer any time via email in the car buying process? And you can see that 20% kind of matches the other number. Pretty kind of close. So when we set up our company back in the late 90s, most of the e-commerce oriented lead providing, third-party sites focused around email lead generation. And we saw this and we said, time out, stop the music, particularly when we observed this. So we started tracking phone versus email contacts to dealerships through AutoTrader.com when we launched the website in May of 1998. And for the first few months of being in business, we saw a picture like this, first few months, basically 80-20. And when I saw that, I said, we can't make this whole thing about emails. People don't want to do email. They're going to pick up the phone or they're going to walk in. But what's interesting is we've been tracking this percentage and watching this picture for the last 148 months. Hasn't moved more than 2% in 148 months. So when we started this company, I used to have to take big, long phone lines from fax machines to big, heavy laptop computers to demonstrate this thing called the internet into car dealerships. And people were picking up the phone then. That was before, fast speed connections. That was before Google. That was before broadband. That was before Facebook. So all these things have happened since. And this picture hasn't changed in 14 years. So a lot of dealers ask why. So I got tired of answering the question with my own guesses, so we decided to ask consumers why. Okay, we asked the question, here it is. Why did you choose not to contact the dealership before walking in? Turns out, didn't want to be contacted by the dealer. Believed the information wouldn't be valuable, didn't think it would be timely, they want to maintain control, they don't want to be harassed, they want to decide when they want to provide their personal information. So people are happy to give up their personal information at the right moment for them. But it's usually not from home when they haven't visited you yet. They don't think they're going to get enough value by giving their name up. In fact, they think they'll end up costing them something in terms of time and having to be chased around. But we did ask people, what else do you want to do? This is the reverse of the other slide around the pain points. It turns out there is high interest in examining and understanding more aspects of the car deal before visiting a dealership. There's high interest. So let me sketch out, and this is where I'm ready to take arrows, an ideal world for consumers. And so, we can sit here as a marketer, as a dealer, and say, this is the way we want the world to work. Or we can say, how do people want it to work? And relate to them. And so this is what our observation over the years has caused us to conclude what people want. People want transparency and confidence. They want transparent information and want to be confident they're making a good decision. Now, how do they get that? They get it through two things. They get it through market context, which involves an understanding of how tight or plentiful is the supply of the car that I'm interested in buying. That has an effect on the price. So the supply-demand aspects of it. What other people have paid for vehicles. What's the market bearing today? What is my trade-in worth? And what's the going rate for people by credit quality in terms of lending programs? It's hard to know those things in advance. And the other thing that people would like to have, alongside that kind of market context, is upfront offers around pricing, trade-ins, and loans. So if you were a car buyer and you weren't the expert that you are, you all are experts in this room because you've all done a gajillion car deals. If you were on the other side of the table, you'd want this. Now, I'm here to say that this is not going to happen anytime soon, like tomorrow or next month, not likely next year. But over the next few years, more and more of these pieces are likely to get assembled. And you're going to hear later that you will have a big, huge role to play in this process. And you'll be in control of it in many ways. Even though this ideal world and all this transparency kind of looks like could be scary or negative or challenging, it really is a two-way street. I want to paint the other side of the picture for you now quickly. So this whole transparency thing that consumers have available to them is really actually fundamentally significantly mirrored on your side. You have unbelievable access to information now. I want to walk through this. So at the manufacturer level, what AutoTrader.com and Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds and Cars.com, we look nationally at automotive brands, and we look at the health of brands in terms of their market share of consideration in their competitive sets, say, vehicle class, for instance. We look at regionally how different brands are performing. This is the kind of information, actually, that if you're interested in, our local reps have access to around what's happening in your brand regionally and nationally. We can also help marketers understand what are people actually considering during the car buying process. So here's a case of a Honda Accord where we can show that the next most shopped for car by Honda Accord intenders is a used Honda Accord. Not surprising. But then Camry, Civic, Altima step in, and then a used Altima is the fourth most shop for a vehicle by a Honda Accord new car intender. So it's good to know who you're competing against, and we can help you do that. The other thing that this transparency is doing is enabling third-party sites to track people. You've heard of this little magical thing called a cookie. Everyone knows what a cookie is, right? There's a guy up here, by the way, you're going to hear from him tomorrow, Eric Brown. He's the master of cookies. He comes from a company called Dadium, and they do a lot of sophisticated tracking. And so he'll be an interesting speaker for you. You'll enjoy him. Because what's happening today is most people do not shut off the tracking capability of their browser. And enables the company that is serving them information to record the fact they visited their site. And when they visit their site, a little cookie goes on the consumer's browser, and then that cookie gets matched at some future time when the consumer hits a network. So in this case, we can help you or an OEM advertise to people in your local market, with the same message after they leave AutoTrader. They're here in this town, and they're on some other site. We can help you touch them by virtue of having watched the cookie that appears on their browser. And when they visit another site, that site's part of an advertising network. Cookie gets matched, ad gets delivered. Interesting form of transparency. Another interesting form of transparency is on the used car side of the industry. We provide you a whole lot of information around the effectiveness of your advertising and how well your cars are performing. So at AutoTrader.com, we help you understand the visibility of your vehicles. Earlier I mentioned how important it is to be tracking how many times your cars are seen. So very important metrics are search results pages per car, vehicle detail pages per car. You should know what that is, how it's trending. And you ought to ask our reps who's doing better than we are and what are they doing different than us. Because the fact that their numbers are higher have to be a function or the result of something different that they're doing. And nowadays we're providing some information from vAuto, a local Chicago company. They have a presence here at this show. You probably know about them. But we're now enabling every dealer in AutoTrader.com to know, how their cars are being priced to market and what the market day supply on average of their cars is in each age bucket. Now, if you're inside vAuto, you get this information in a much more granular way down at the individual car level. Because what vAuto does is date stamp every car in America, every car. They see when it comes, they see when it goes. They track it at the year, make, model, trim, equipment level. They're able to see in a radius what comparable cars are, how they're priced. So you can see how competitive your cars are priced relative to the market average. And you can also see how fast they're turning. Very important information. So you have a lot of transparency around search. I wanted to share that with you too. So we did through Polk, we asked this question again: how do people use search in the car buying process? They use it mainly to access your sites and find other sites. We asked them, what are these? And we asked the question, while vehicle shopping, did you use a search engine for any of the following purposes for new and used car buyers? So you can see that they're using it to find your sites and OEM sites. Now the other thing we've done is try to produce some transparency for you on the role of Google in the car buying process. So we went into a bunch of dealerships, looked at their data, tried to normalize the information. These hosting reports are kind of hard to read, a little bit messy. We went through multiple levels of support to know what we're looking at, but here is the answer. When you look at most dealership websites, yours is probably the same. Search drives approximately half of your visitations. Does that kind of ring a bell with y'all? Does that resonate? Search is about half of your traffic. And direct nav, people knowing your name, is 40%. And the other is people linking to you from various third parties. So when you look at that picture, you'd say, wow, Google drives my business. That's what that tells you, doesn't it? But you got to peel the onion back a little bit. So we peeled the onion back. So that little bit of that, so you can see that little piece up there, Cars.com and AutoTrader, a few others are comprised of that. But we asked the question, what's inside this thing called Google search? And the way we did it was we went to a certain part of your reports called search phrases. And you can do this. What are the search phrases? It's a big, long list. And it's not categorized. We put it into two categories. Search phrases that have your name in them, and search phrases that don't have your name in them. So a search phrase that has your name is, all the ones on the right. Others are like, Ford Explorer, Chicago, Illinois, 2008 Jeep Grand Cherokee, Northbrook, Illinois. Those are kind of classified style searches. It turns out that when you look at the searches that come into your sites from Google, most of the traffic has your name in it already. Most of it has your name. And when you put that together with the early information I shared with you, it says 65% of the people who come to you through Google already know your name. You might wonder how. How does that work? Obviously, many of you have long-standing names in your local community. They associate your name with your brand, and they might actually remember it enough to type your name in Google, and that's great if it's true. But the other thing that's happening is people, as we heard earlier, are shopping car by car by car by car. It's not convenient to jump across the tops of dealers' websites. Not convenient. So they go to third parties like Cars or AutoTrader, and they see a vehicle detail page. Now there's a link over here that says visit dealer website. Most people don't see it. We're happy to send traffic to you through AutoTrader. Most people don't see it. So what do? They type your name into a Google search box after being on a third-party site, and they come to your website. So that 8% I showed you earlier, I think I hit the wrong button again. That 8% I told you earlier, so this is the view that you normally see. The true view is this. You've got some keywords, which are people not typing your name in. You've got basically 32 plus 42, 75% of your traffic, people know your name. And then that 9% really is being misattributed in many ways, because a lot of that 32 comes from the 9. Because people are seeing you on Cars and AutoTrader before coming to your website. That makes common sense. And what we've done in many cases is we've been able to work with dealers where we put an electronic tracking tag on your website, like Eric does in many cases. Put an electronic tracking tag. Happy to do this. And any of you want to do this, we can do this for you. Tracking tag on your website and on AutoTrader, and help you observe and know what the visitation on AutoTrader.com was of people visit your website. Turns out the average is about 40 to 50% of the time. People who are on your website were also on AutoTrader.com. And I think that Eric can validate that when he talks about his work tomorrow. Is that true, Eric, basically?
You want me to actually share the numbers?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So we actually see a 34% overlap between the traffic in any dealership site versus an automotive portal. Portals in general. So that takes some portals that have less traffic, so your number would be relevant to AutoTrader. The other more interesting thing about that traffic is that the matter of quality is significantly better. They convert leads to that local dealer at a rate 5 times greater than traffic that has not been in a portal prior to that dealership.
So this isn't scripted, but you'll hear from him tomorrow. But the point is the point is that there's a huge amount of this traffic right here that was driven to you through third-party sites. But Google gets the credit today. That's the only point I'm making, is to be a little bit discerning and look underneath the surface of these reports to try to validate this finding for you. So Google today is the true yellow pages of America. It really is. And the dynamic on that site is way, way different than on Cars or AutoTrader.com. If you're not on page 1 of Google, you're dead. If you're high-priced on AutoTrader.com, chances are you're going to get skipped past. And you don't have to worry about being on page 3, 4, or 5, because people are going to find you. People often ask me, why do we price rank the sort high to low? Simple reason. We could create very quickly a race to the bottom in this industry by putting low prices on the first page and driving all the attention to the first page, as opposed to enabling a high-priced car to tell its story and have the lower-priced cars take their place in the market. They're more competitive cars. So that's the reason why we do that. It's for your benefit, actually. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Jim.
So this point around how consumers contact dealers initially is very important. And as a result, we've been trying to help the dealer body understand the internet truly is an influencing medium, where how effectively you advertise your cars and the kind of quality of your presentation, as well as what I mentioned earlier, having great inventory that's effectively priced, competitively priced, determines whether you're going to win or not. Now I'm going to share with you another aspect quickly, another aspect of transparency that's developing in this industry. This looks like a messy chart, but what it actually represents is a consumer's typical path in the car buying process. And here's the way it works. They start off on a place like Kelley Blue Book, where they're looking at valuing their trade. What is my trade worth? And then they start researching the next car they want to buy on Kelley and AutoTrader.com, where they're researching vehicles. And then when they decide they really want to get into shopping mode, they visit a classified site like ours. And they go in to view a bunch of vehicles. Then, like I said earlier, they'll often visit Google to try to get to you. They're visiting dealer websites. And that's when they start bouncing back and forth between dealer websites and third parties. And if you're a car buyer, it's a natural thing. Ultimately, they buy a car at your store, and then usually what you do is you send them a thank you message. You get their email contact information, you send them a thank you message. That is the opportunity for a magic moment. The magic moment right there. If and only if the CRM system is connected deeply electronically to your website, like it is today inside the AutoTrader family. So what we can do with a subset of you in this room, not all of you, subset of you in this room, is we can track back and see everything the customer did on your website before they bought the car, as well as what they did on Kelley and AutoTrader. So we can help you understand that. We're just in the beginning stages of kind of mastering all this information and trying to help you understand what it means to you. We're not going to touch any PII in this process. No need. We don't even need a totally statistic. We don't need 100% of the population. Here's how this works. So car buyers interact with you through CRM and up into your sites and then up in Kelley. So some of you are VinSolutions dealers. We own VinSolutions now. VinSolutions has an integrated suite of tools that match the cookie. So what happens, this magic moment happens when the cookie that is present when the customer answers the email gets matched to their prior website history on your site, then gets matched with the prior history from AutoTrader and Kelley Blue Book. That's the capability we're working on helping you have in the future. It exists now. We're in the testing mode of it. So let me just quickly talk about this future state of automotive shopping. Pat's here. I don't want to take his time. So this is where the fearless prognostications come. And again, the arrows. I've got a big, huge shield on my back here. So we think that this sacred, also inscrutable thing called the Foursquare is going to start to be made more transparent, but only if you allow it to be. So, for instance, when you're out there with your new cars, posting a price under MSRP, you're sending a signal to the market that says, I'm willing to be competitive. I'm willing to deal with you. Here's my starting point. If you're participating in the AutoTrader.com trade-in marketplace, where consumers get an instant offer, sight unseen for a used car, puts a floor under the price that you can still sell the car at nicely if you take it in. That's a form of transparency to car buyers. First time ever in America anybody's ever put a liquid price offer on a used car sight unseen. We're doing it in 50 states. It happens millions of times a month now. So that's an interesting form of transparency. Produces a good flow. There's probably some trade and marketplace participants in the room. Some, hopefully. Didn't see any show of hands, but some of you probably. And then the other aspect of the Foursquare I just wanted to mention is the financing part. I wanted to share also with you how broken this is. So here's how it works. Here's some numbers that we've never actually put out there in the public world before. So there are a lot of people on AutoTrader.com. As you know, about 16 million a month. About 64,000 times a month, people will click on the button on your vehicle detail page that says, send a secure credit application to the dealer. That goes to you directly in a secure way. We don't see the information. We'll do anything with it. So you can see that 26,000 times that happens, but only 45% of the time those are even opened. So number one, it's not a large number. Number two, many dealers ignore it. Now, it's going to email systems. It's not being integrated to your F&I the way it should be. But that just shows how undeveloped the F&I process is today online. So I wanted to suggest a way this might work in the future that could be beneficial to you. A number of dealers have asked us to come up with something like this, so we're working on it today. The idea is this: on a specific car, a consumer sees the car at your store and provides information on what kind of loan they want, what their term is, what their credit quality is, what their down payment capability is. They provide that information. And based upon that, they get a certificate that says, based upon, preliminarily based upon your information, subject to confirmation and further negotiation, this is the first pencil monthly payment offer. And the way this would work is that all your normal lenders would be tapped in the back end, and your normal lending criteria would be applied to any offer made to a consumer. And the way this would be done couldn't be done by AutoTrader by itself, obviously. It needs participation from another big player who you work with. So we're working with those guys now at DealerTrack to create this capability. We're going to test it later this year in some local markets. Some dealers have asked us to do this for them because they would like to present this kind of transparency in the market. We're going to see how this works. But it's again, one of those aspects of the Foursquare that consumers are interested in. And what I wanted to mention to you then is that there's a chance to bridge this divide. This ideal world won't come about immediately, obviously. In the meantime, it will continue to be an elephant in the room. But I think there's really two elephants in the room. The other elephant in the room is traditional media. Because if the movement toward greater transparency starts to affect any aspect of your margins, which it could, there are other places to go to protect your bottom line. And like we saw earlier, there are a big disconnect in this industry. So there's so much money being spent in traditional media still. There's a big opportunity for you to make adjustments in your business. I think as technology changes our industry like it changes other industries, we have to adapt and look at all aspects of our model. This is an aspect of the model that probably will be challenged in the future. So here's our takeaways, suggested takeaways. First of all is that marketers like you can benefit from this if you go after it intelligently. Secondly, it's only going to go as fast as you allow it. That's a key point. The whole business of providing information to consumers about the deal ahead of time can only come from you. And thirdly, it's very importantly, it's the role of sites like ours to play a very responsible role to create an environment that understands the nuances that exist in the transaction and facilitates useful interactions, ones that are beneficial to consumers and business beneficial to you. And that's our pledge to you as we work our way through this kind of evolution over the next few years at AutoTrader, and Kelley Blue Book. That's the stance we're going to take. Philosophically, we're not going to produce things that try to create a race to the bottom. Like I said earlier, we organize our search results page for a pretty good reason. If you go low to high, it changes the dynamic in America of trying to be on page one. Don't need to be on page one. So that's the philosophical place we come from. And that's my contact information and cell phone. Happy to talk to you anytime about any of this. Our local folks are too. We're here to serve you. We consider it a great privilege to be part of this industry. It's a fun time. There are tremendous changes in technology, and your businesses are changing, and we enjoy working with you. So before I hand it over to the esteemed Pat Ryan, any quick questions or comments?
I have a mic right here, so if anybody has a question. Going once, going twice.
That means I got you completely befuddled.
That's all right.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's
great being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.